Welcome back to part 3, carving sparrows on a gourd with a Dremel. Safety first. Be sure to wear eye protection, a mask, glove on the hand that does not hold the drill, and do not touch the bits while they're in motion. I use a Dremel 3000 variable speed with a flex shaft. These are tungsten carbide bits. These bits are used for taking away material. They do it quickly. They're very sharp. They're not used for detail. They're used for removing material quickly. I'm using a small ball sanding bit to go around the edges and really clean them up. This is where we take up from part 2. We're going to do a really good cleanup and get it ready for painting. Go around all those edges, make them nice and smooth. Take your time. I've got it sped up here. I don't really work that fast, so take your time, clean it up, make those edges look nice. I've changed bits here. I'm using the long nose diamond cone to clean it up some more. Getting up underneath there where I undercut, cleaning that up, and then going around the edges as well. Also, that long nose diamond cone bit will get up in the corners, like right in there, like it'll clean up those corners real nicely. Be careful not to poke a hole in your gourd. Right in that area there, I poked a hole in it. If you do poke a hole in your gourd, no problem. I do it all the time. You can turn that into art as well, so not a problem. Just take your time, go easy. See how it gets up in them corners real nice. We're going to use a 200 grit nail file, and we're going to get down in there even more and continue to round out those edges, smooth the tops, smooth out anything that looks rough and unfinished. We want to make it look nice and clean. You can also take the buffing block and go over it if you need to. The nail file buffing blocks, they're great. I use them as well. But today I'm just using the 200 grit nail file. We'll speed this up a little bit. There's no point in watching it in real time. We'll just clean this up real nice. We're getting it ready for painting. Now when I paint, I use oil or I use acrylic, one or the other. It doesn't matter. I don't use watercolor because it spreads out too much. But we're getting it ready to paint. Just to give you a little extra learning curve here on this video, I'm going to roughly sketch out a flower so that I can show you how to do flower petals. I'm using a Sharpie, but you can use a pencil, you can use anything you want, because by the time you get through carving, there's no marks left. But I want to show you quickly how to make flower petals. So I'm taking a tungsten carbide small ball bit, and I'm rocking it back and forth inside the petal to make a concave look. We want the inside of the petal to be concave. So that's what you see me doing there. Just rocking it back and forth from the center out to the end of the petal, back and forth, and making it concave. See, there you can see how it has a dip in the center. It's all concaved out. That's very simple, very easy. That's one way to do a flower petal. Then we're going to go around the outside edges of the leaves. We're going to get some depth like we did for the rest of the design. We're going to get about 1/4 of an inch depth around the outside of the leaves. Right now I'm using a snub nose tungsten carbide bit to do that, to cut out the edges. And then after we're through, you know, we got to go back and we need to feather all that back and make sure it's smooth, and then be sure you put your texture back in. So now I'm using a small ball sanding bit again to put little tiny holes in the center of the flower for the stamen area. Just lightly pressing down, making little indentations for the stamen area. I keep repeating myself, I'm sorry, but I just want everybody to understand what I'm talking about. And see how I'm going around the edges? You can also use that to kind of clean up and fine tune a little bit. Just remember, when you're all finished, you got to feather back real nicely, and then you want to be sure to put in more detail. That's what I'm doing there. I'm wiggling it around and putting more of those wiggly lines for the background detail. The texture. So we got to put that texture back in there, so that's what I'm doing there. So we're just about ready to start painting. I'm getting excited. Then we'll go on to another lesson. Not sure what we're going to do. Y'all can give me some ideas. What you'd like me to carve would be great. I'd love to hear your ideas. But see how I'm putting that texture back in there? We messed it up when we went in and did the flower. So putting that all back in there, wiggling it back in there with that little small ball sanding bit. After we're all through painting this design, then we will do something with the outer shell, and then we will take the top of it off and we'll open it up and get the seeds out, and I'll show you how to clean out the inside of the gourd. I'm starting to paint now. I'm using oil paints. You can use acrylic. It doesn't matter. Paint any colors you want. I'm not going to go into my color palette, as I'm just grabbing paints and painting this for you. I'm going to blend a darker paint out into a lighter color towards the end of the flower petals. That's what I'm going to do. Just kind of blend it back. You take the lighter color and wiggle it into the darker color. When we're all finished, we'll go over this with a really nice polyurethane, and it'll be real shiny. It'll give it a really nice glass finish. That's the last thing we do, is do the polyurethane. And if you want to, let me know. We can do a serious, detailed study on how to paint if you have trouble painting. See, I'm wiggling that back and forth so we can get a nice, soft blend going from dark to light on those petals. And I mix colors. I didn't just use one solid color green. I've got some yellow in there, a couple of other different colors, light green, dark green, yellow, to give a little variation in the leaves. And it's real nice. If you decide you don't want to paint your gourd, you can. We can just go over it with a little burnt umber oil paint, put it on there, and then rub it off, and it gives it a beautiful antique look. You don't have to paint it at all. The burnt umber will give it a nice patina when you rub it off. But I thought we'd put a little color on this one. And we'll do a study of just putting the burnt umber patina on there. We'll do that in another video. So much fun. There's so many things we can do. And you don't have to just carve this pattern on a gourd. You can carve it on a flat piece of wood. You can carve it on anything. But this is just a basic carving lesson for the beginner carver. Gourds are wonderful to carve on because they're soft. They're easy to carve. So now we're going to take the lid off. We're going to create the lid and make the bowl. We're going to get inside, take out all the seeds, clean that out, scrape the insides, and then we're going to paint the inside. There's various ways that you can do the inside. You can put gold leaf, you can paint it different colors, you can leave it natural. But today we're going to paint the inside. So we're using a round tungsten carbide cutting bit to cut this lid loose. This bit cuts a beautiful seam. It's fairly smooth. There's not much finishing to do when you get through cutting. But you do have to take your time, go slow, and be sure that you have the gourd in a position that makes it easy for you to control that bit. You'll notice that I move the gourd around a lot to get it ergonomically correct so that I can control it and keep it designed nice and even. Just small strokes, pull it to you. There are several bits that you can use to cut the lids off, but since I'm not going to be using this as a lid, I don't need such a fine line, so I'm just going to use this carbide wheel to cut with. But you can use a miniature skill saw. There's several different types of tools that you can use to cut the lids off. It just depends on if you want to put the lid on and have a seamless look. There's just several ways to do it. Continue to pull that bit towards you slowly. Don't get in a hurry. I use about a number 4 speed so it doesn't jump on me. If you go too slow, it'll jump and vibrate. If you go too fast, it'll be out of control and it'll also burn your gourd. So just pull it to you gently, all the way around. We'll go around and get a nice deep line, and then we'll take the pointed cone bit and we'll go down and open up the seam. Now we'll take the long nose sanded cone bit and we'll go around that seam and finish cutting through there, and it will smooth out the cut as it goes along. Poking that long nose sanded cone straight in, then I pull it to myself Pull it gently, slowly, so that it makes a nice smooth cut. You won't have much sanding to do to finish it off. Now if you want a really fine seamless line and use that as a lid, you want to be sure you use a miniature scroll saw. And there's also other bits that you can use. But I enjoy doing it this way. It's fun, it's easy, and I don't plan on using this for a lid. You can see the little holes there. I knew I wasn't going to be using that for anything, so I drilled down in there to let me know how deep that shell is, so I would know how deep I can go with my carving. And also, if you want to test the depth of your gourd, if you rub on the bottom of it and it sounds hollow, that means it's thin. If you thump on the bottom of it and it sounds heavy and thick, then you got a thick gourd. Look how beautiful that opened up. You can see on the inside of that gourd, you can see the seed pod. You're going to pull that whole thing out and it's going to be full of seeds. And if you want to, you can save those seeds and plant them. I plant them like the first week of March. And we have a long growing season here. I can grow them until about the end of October. So you plant them the first week of March and they'll grow that long. The longer the growing season, the thicker the gourds are going to be. Okay, now we're going to take this spoon and we're going to scrape the insides out. Scrape all that papery lining out of there. It'll have a real pretty design on the inside that you can paint or not paint. Sometimes I'll leave it clear, sometimes I'll paint it different colors, it doesn't matter. Or you can even put gold leaf in there. Scrape all that paper out of there. Be sure you wear a mask while you're doing this so you don't pick up any fine dust, irritate your sinuses. It's all cleaned out now. And I poured paint in there. I used Folk Art white paint and I thinned it down to heavy whipping cream consistency. I poured it in there and then kind of just rolled it all around until it filled in all of the inside. Now we set it aside and let it dry thoroughly, and it will be sealed. In part 4, we will finish painting, staining, and glazing, including doing more outside texturing. Thank you for being here. You are my hero. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.